Welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast with William Harris, featuring top business leaders sharing strategies and resources to get to the next level. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey everyone, I'm William Harris. I'm the founder and CEO of Element and the host of the Up Arrow Podcast, where I feature the best minds in e-commerce to help you scale from 10 million to 100 million and beyond as you up arrow your business and your personal life. Send more emails, launch another loyalty program, add SMS, add push, add a mobile app. If you've been doing tactic after tactic but still wondering why retention stalls, you're not alone. Today's guest has lived through the hard version of that lesson. He's been nearly wiped out by a single enterprise client. He's watched millions of users disappear when a platform collapsed underneath him. He once got a $6 check for a debt north of six figures. We will unpack that one. And instead of quitting, he rebuilt. Jason Anderson is the CRO of Andzen, one of the most respected customer journey and CRM teams in e-commerce today. Over the last decade, he's worked with brands ranging from fast-growing D2C startups to global enterprise portfolios, including a call he almost ignored that turned into a relationship with GSK. Jason, welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast.
Thanks, Will. It's good to be here, mate.
I love to give a shout out to the people who make introductions like yours, and I'm excited to meet you. Dilyar Asghar is the one who introduced us. So Dilyar, Thank you. Good heart friend, network extraordinaire, just a good guy all around.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to know Dilyar for probably 5 years now.
Wow.
And it's always so good to get on a phone call with because he's just such a creative mind. Like he's always thinking and trying to do things differently, asking questions that kind of prompt you to think a little bit differently as well. So yeah, great guy.
Yeah, you need people like that in your corner. Jason, I've got one quick interruption, then we'll jump right into the good stuff. This episode is brought to you by Element. Element is an award-winning advertising agency optimizing e-commerce campaigns around profit. In fact, we've helped 13 of our customers get acquired, with the largest one selling for nearly $800 million and one that IPO'd. You can learn more on our website at element.com, which is spelled ELUMYNT.com. That said, on to the good stuff. Okay, you've been at Andzen for over a decade, but this wasn't some overnight success. What did early Jason misunderstand the most?
It's a good question. I think, so like a lot of people, I went to university and did a degree that had nothing to do with the career that I then pursued. I did journalism and PR, and I remember thinking when I was in university that if I just go and offer my work for free, an intern at some of these like big companies and big agencies, you know, someone there is going to recognize that I've got the right drive and the right skills, and you know, they'll give me the job that I want, basically.
Sure.
And so I did. In my final year of university, I was pretty much working full-time hours, about 30 hours a week across 3 or 4 different companies. And I think part of the reality of what I found was that going and just giving my work away for free set a value, right, at the work that I was doing. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't really until I started working with some other people, mostly in the public relations field, who was saying, no, don't do it for free. I mean, like, you could do it for a nominal amount of money, but, you know, here, take some of my overflow work, take this, I started to meet people who were serious about the people they wanted to work with because they were paying for it, right?
Sure.
And it was definitely a misconception that I had, that I could bring this value for free and people would value it at what it was worth, and then they would see my worth at that. But the reality is that I was going out and I was giving my time away to the type of people who want things for free, not the type of people who are willing to pay for good work. And that doesn't really often lead to good paying work. So it was definitely a lesson that I had to get early on. And, you know, the journey that I ended up going on, the way that I met our founder, Brendan, and became, you know, a partner at Andzen. The job that he initially offered me was as a support person answering the phones at our previous company.
Wow.
So, you know, I'd gone from working for some of the biggest mining companies in Australia by interning at big PR agencies for free to literally answering the phone for $25 email accounts when their template wasn't working on mobile. So humbling, but, you know, it proves that journey that I went on rapidly became the career that I wanted compared to the amount of time I was just giving away for free.
I want to ask about that, but I got to go back to this idea of giving away time for free too, which there were audiences were a big thing on Facebook Meta a long time ago, right? And I say a long time ago, it's like everything seems like a long time ago anymore. But we used to set up all these different audiences around interests and things like that. We don't do that as much anymore. But there was an audience that was for people who used coupons or coupon lovers or something like that. And it was an audience that I remember walking into and seeing in accounts all the time. And I was like, you realize you are literally just optimizing towards people who are probably going to be your lowest LTV customers. This is not a strategy that I recommend. And we would very often pull people away from that, especially if we looked at the cohort analyses.
Yeah, I mean, we could probably spend 15 minutes on this easily off track, but I actually saw a post from an agency, a founder that I know, they're also in the PPC space, and he recently did a post talking about a client of his who increased their basically their social bids, the cap on their ad buy, because they were willing to increase their CAC. And what they suddenly found was that their average order value was going up, but the crucial thing was that their retention rates were going up. So the only thing they changed was that they increased their ad cap, and suddenly 3 months later, they had a much higher percentage of people purchasing for a second time than they did before. And he was essentially theorizing that when you go on this rampage of like, we need to reduce CAC as much as possible, you're really funneling your ad strategy in to the type of person who is looking at a product and saying, oh, well, it's cheap, I'll give it a try. But you're potentially not honing in on that more premium buyer who is looking for a brand to trust that isn't just, shopping the next ad that they get and moving on to a new interest, but potentially the type of buyer that's willing to spend a little bit more but be a bit more loyal. And it got me really thinking, obviously working in a retention agency, it's something that I never really considered was outside of being interested in whatever the merchant's product is, what are the ad agencies that our clients are working with doing, and what type of person are they bringing in? Because, we spend a lot of our time analyzing that data to understand, gender, age, preferences, do they have pets, do they have kids, all the things that might impact their purchasing cycle and how we're communicating to them. When, what we find is the ideal customer type in their CRM might be completely different to the type of customer they're getting on ads just because of the CAC that they're working towards.
Yeah, this is maybe too much of a blanket statement, but lowering CAC is almost never the goal. And I say this to anybody who's coming to talk to us, to work with us, or anything along those lines, unless it's so bad that is the only way that your business is going to survive in the short term. Maybe that's okay, right? But more often than not, it's what can you afford for a CAC? And then can we increase that average order value, the first purchase value, the lifetime value? Can we increase other things to make it so that way that CAC is a good sustainable CAC for you? Because that, I think, allows for a better overall healthy business.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to get into that stuff here, and I do have a section for that, but I really got to ask you a couple of other things. One was the client that almost ended everything. You told me about this massive client that nearly wiped you out. Like, what was going on? What happened?
Yeah, so this was in the very early days of Andzen. We had a client, they were a startup, but they were funded. They were very big. They had millions of customers globally. And we essentially at that time, were licensing an email platform. There's a bit of a story there. I'm sure we'll get into it. But essentially, we were licensing this tool. This client was paying us huge amounts every month due to the size of their database. So we were managing all of their email strategy and the services around it, the SMS as well. But we were essentially using a platform that we were licensing to. So we had not a massive margin, but a little margin on that platform. But of course, we were the ones that were getting invoiced by that platform, right? Having to pay its costs. So we'd been working with this client for a number of years, our biggest client. And then we started to just have a few little funny things happen. Maybe an invoice was late, next month was on time, but then next month was even later than the month prior. And, it's sort of progressed from being patchy to suddenly, most months we were talking about some sort of payment plan to, get through payments each week to pay off the monthly amount. And luckily, Brendan, our CEO, very luckily for us at the time, made a decision to basically bank any amount of profit that we were making from this client and put it in a separate account and make sure that if anything ever went wrong, there would be as much money in that account as possible to pay our costs out to that platform that we were licensing for all, these emails and SMS that they were sending.
Yeah. Yep.
And this probably progressed, for over a year, and it started becoming very public news how this company was going financially. They had taken essentially Australia's equivalent of 401k accounts. Quite a lot of those had invested in this platform. And so there was a bit of a political angle to like, well, is it going to be okay if this platform fails?
Wow.
They got to a point where they tried to list on the ASX, and one of the founders of the name's suddenly escaping me. Michael Cannon-Brookes, what's his...
I don't know. I got to Google it.
Atlassian, one of the Atlassian founders. So he's Australian, and he basically came out in a major newspaper and said, if the regulators let this company list on the stock exchange, it would be criminal. Like, we would be sending a message to the market that the Australian Stock Exchange is a get out of jail free card for failing businesses. And in the end, the regulators shut it down. It couldn't list, and it went under. And we had gotten to the point where we had banked enough, basically, money that we could pay all of our platform fees. We were kind of in the green, and the next invoice was going to be all profit. And we'd been waiting for 12 months to make some profit off this client, so we were really looking forward to it. And I think that was the month that they then went under, and the liquidators came in and took over. And I think it was maybe 7 or 8 years later, we got a $6 check in the mail to say, the liquidators, this is how much money was left. The liquidator's fee to go through everything. The liquidator's fee was 99% of what was left, and he was the small kitty of the remaining that was being spread out amongst all the debtors. Yeah.
Did you cry? Were you $6? Oh, it's like 100,000.
Look, I mean, 8 years later, we'd moved on by then, but it was, at the time when they kind of finally announced it, we were wrapped up for the day. We went to the pub, and I mean, quite genuinely, if Brendan had been cautious and hadn't been kind of looking at what the market was doing, we were only a couple of years old at that point. A lot of businesses that at that age wouldn't, it was a struggle to put that money away and not invest it back into our business and try and do all the things that we needed to do to grow at 1 to 2 years old as a business, right? It was a really difficult decision to play it safe. If we hadn't have played it safe, this business would have been gone over a decade ago. But it just shows sometimes taking that approach, taking a calculated risk, and we made the right calculation in the end, and we survived. And it was a shame to have not made any profit, but at the same time, it was a big logo. I'm sure it probably helped us win some deals back then, and we were able to kind of just carry on and survive.
I've definitely talked to founders who've had polarizing views on this thing here, right? One are like, sell the cow, get the magic beans, go all in. And then there's the other that's like, no, take calculated risk. I kind of lean towards the idea of like a good middle ground, but it's maybe a little bit more calculated, because I think it may be Simon Sinek who really kind of popularized this idea, at least to me, which is you can't play the game if you're out of the game, right? Like, the biggest way for you to lose is if you end up just being wiped out of the game. And so you got to stay in the game. And if you can stay in the game, you likely can weather a lot of different storms. And it sounds like Brendan was able to do that for you guys. And
and a bit of delayed gratification, right?
Sure.
I mean, at the end of the day, we weren't telling ourselves that we were never going to spend this money. We were just saying, if it's going to take 9 months to build up enough to cover our costs on this and know we'll be safe if something goes wrong, let's just do that for 9 months. And in month 10, we'll book a dinner and go and celebrate. And for us, month 10 never came, but we survived because, we were calculated in how we did it.
Well, depending on when it was, $6 could maybe get you a Happy Meal, and so you guys could split it. That's not true anymore, but
yeah. It's about half a pint of beer in Australia these days, so we could have shared that between the two of us.
There you go. On the flip side, though, a few years ago, you got an inbound from Shopify, from the Shopify Partner Portal, that you thought was spam. Why did you take the call anyway?
It was Klaviyo Partner Portal. Yeah.
Klaviyo.
So this was during COVID, the early days of COVID. So still in 2020. We got an inquiry from someone saying that they were from GSK and that they were looking for a partner to support them with Chapstick. And
sure,
for us, we looked at this inquiry. We generally stood around the office laughing, being like, "This is, what kind of spam or fake inquiry is this?" Because you do get a lot. You get a lot of people just kind of phishing and telling you who they think they might be to try and book calls and whatnot. So we talked about it, and obviously we just reply, why not, and see. And lo and behold, a week later, we get on a phone call with a French woman, and she was part of a small innovation team at GSK, and they were looking to take Chapstick direct to consumer, and they were looking for a top Klaviyo agency to do it, and we were the choice. That was the start. So we ended up launching with them. We'd just launched in the US. So they very quickly became our biggest client in the US. We launched Chapstick. We did a great job, and that ended up leading us to work with a whole range of their portfolio of retail products. So Pronamel, Sensodyne, Advil, Voltaren. I think there was about 9 or 10 brands that were in this portfolio. And so, this very inconspicuous kind of inquiry that we received via Partner Portal that just seemed absolutely impossible very quickly turned into, for us, what was tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars of monthly billables for a company who had quite literally months before launched our US operation. It was genuinely like strapping a rocket ship to the back of it and sending it to the moon.
You do have to be careful. I actually got an email just today from somebody that was a phishing email from from a brand that I would love to work with. It was the actual brand's own name. They got hacked, sent it out. Hey, we want the RFP. Click on here to get the PDF. And you're just like, so tempting. But I happen to know the owner of the company. So I reached out. I was like, is this you or is this not? And it's like, no, we got hacked. And so they sent it. But so you do have to be careful. Yeah, you see
it all the time. People might not be aware, but agencies like ours, we get these types of emails all the time of people imitating these big brands. So it was, I quite genuinely remember 3 of us sitting in the office, actually laughing about thinking that it was this
with well-hydrated lips.
And away we went.
So what systems were in place that allowed you to say yes? Because you were able to say yes then at this situation. Like you said, it was new and up and coming for you for the U.S. market. But what was in place that made you say, yep, we can go ahead and take this on?
Yeah, so we tried a couple of different things with North America. It's a very well-trodden path for Australian businesses to try and expand into the US. It's usually one of the US or the UK. And historically, a lot of brands in Australia, when they want to go into the US, or North America in general, include Canada in that, it's usually take on a bunch of investment and try and make a big splash when you get there and generate all of this attention. And it almost never works out, in my experience, seeing brands do that, or they end up spending an incredible amount of money. It takes a long time to pay back. We tried to go the other route, very, very slow and steady. We were picking up clients just through having really good work. We attended a conference or two in the US, met some merchants. We had a really robust tech partner network. And, as you can imagine, a lot of those platforms are obviously founded in the US. And so we were kind of building clients through reputation there. And then we initially thought, why don't we try with just a remote salesperson on the ground who could try and build some business. And if they can then successfully build the business, we'll continue to expand. And it just didn't really work for us as well as we had hoped. We weren't getting the scale quickly enough. And so we made a decision to put an account manager on the ground instead. We went senior. Brennan and I both flew over to the US. We set up a WeWork office, put people in place, and basically spent a few weeks over there doing kind of an intensive onboarding culture. Who is Andzen? What is our mentality? What is our approach? Really kind of bringing everything that it is that makes us who we are to this new staff member in LA we chose. And mind you, this was January of 2020, not the best time, obviously, to be investing in a physical office and things. So, we kind of really went hard on that, and then went home. And I think that was the difference of, we were there. So while we were there, we were obviously going to events and we were meeting merchants, meeting partners. But we also took the time, I think, to instill what it meant to work for Andzen, right? And the only real two people that could do that were Brennan and I. We were the two original guys at the company. We knew everything about it. It really needed our personal attention to drill this in. And it was complete opposite in terms of the success that we started to see. When clients wanted to come on board, they had a face that they could meet that could actually represent the brand in all the ways that they would have heard about from our partners, or the things that they might have seen if they read reviews online and things. And it wasn't just a salesperson. It was someone who could walk the walk and talk the talk. We just instantly had very different results. We were able to, bring merchants on, get results, build a base that we were able to then sustainably grow from. And then, now, today we've been there for 6 years this year. And growth has been really steady. And we've experienced months where it's been our biggest region in terms of revenue.
Very cool.
So it's, like I said, it's a bit of a badge of honor for us to be, in our opinion, a brand that's been able to make that expansion stick and have staff over there, have a team over there, because it's a very small number of agencies in particular that have been able to do it. I mean, it's hard enough running an agency, let alone trying to expand.
It really is. I want to dig in now to customer journey, kind of like the meat of the topic. This is the thing that I think the e-commerce merchants will have the most excitement behind. Segmentation. Most brands say they do segmentation. I'd say that there's probably few that are 10 million that are like, no, we don't do segmentation. But what's the difference between just checking the box and being truly intentional?
Yeah, so something that we try to work with merchants to think about is that your marketing calendar can be as aggressive as you want it to be, right? It can be as full of events and activity as you like. Mm-hmm. What you really want to do, though, is understand who out of my customers is maybe at the peak of their purchasing propensity or interest and engagement, and who is maybe at the trough in terms of, being at the bottom. Maybe they purchased relatively recently and your product has a 3 months repurchase cycle and they're just not going to be in the best place to reorder right now. And then tailoring who is getting that message at what rate, essentially, what velocity. People who are at the peak of their interest and propensity, they could get an email every day from you over the course of a week, but they'll be so engaged and so ready to buy that they're opening every one of those emails, they're clicking, they're definitely not unsubscribing or marking as spam. So what we need to be doing is breaking your segments down into, okay, who are the people that are up here that could be getting emailed every day? Who are the people that are maybe 75% there that could get 2 or 3 emails in a week or SMS? Who are the people at 50% where maybe it's 1? And who are the people who are at maybe 10 or 20%? And what are we doing to make sure that that 10 or 20 doesn't fade down to 0, but continuously builds back up to 50, 75, and 100? And then looking at your marketing calendar and being intentional around, right, these are the people that are going to get this, these are the people that are going to get that. And you'll be interested to see, I mean, we've worked with brands where they use, Klaviyo's recommended kind of engagement base, and Klaviyo's done a really good job of educating their customers about deliverability and the need to use segments that are, 30 days, 90 days, 180 days engaged. And a lot of your merchants, that's probably the extent of the segmentation that they're doing, which is definitely the right thing to do from a segmentation standpoint or a deliverability standpoint. But what happens when you're silently accruing all of these people in the background that you haven't emailed for 6 months because they hadn't opened an email or they'd become disengaged? One, you're building up a huge amount of people in your account that you're paying for that you're not actually sending emails to.
Right.
But two, you've got this dormant list of customers that you're not doing anything to keep warm. And these might be people who purchase from you over Black Friday, and maybe they haven't again for whatever reason, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to purchase again at Black Friday. There might be gift purchasers who purchase, for a partner's birthday or something like that, but maybe they want to purchase again and add to their partner's collection the next birthday if they really loved it, or replenish, all these different types of customer demographics that you could potentially just be ignoring. We have a merchant who we did kind of a test where we, over 12 months, we consistently emailed at least once a month this group of people that otherwise they historically would have just ignored. And by the end of the 12 months, almost half of the revenue that they made from email came from campaigns sent to that segment.
Interesting.
And so it's not necessarily that, there's 50 or 100,000 people in this segment and they're going to be purchasing every week, but 5 or 10% of them might purchase in January, another 5 or 10% might purchase in February, and you keep stacking that 5 or 10% up all the way until December, and you've potentially converted a huge amount of those kind of dormant or lapsed customers back into being engaged. And sending to these people once a month with a, some sort of good message, if there's a major promo in that month, if there's a new collection that's launching, you want it to be a key message or something that's kind of attention grabbing. But sending to those people once a month, even if the open rate is only 15 or 20%, that is not going to that's not going to destroy your deliverability for the rest of the year, and you're going to have to start from scratch, right? Sending that one email that has a low open rate, as long as it's not getting bounces and spam complaint rates, which it shouldn't if your segments are set up properly, the only thing it's going to do is just help you try and bring back some of that disengaged customer base.
I love lapsed buyers, disengaged customers. We use them in the advertising as well all the time. And one of our favorite ways to use them is, to your point, maybe they're not even going to see the email, right? If it's only 15% open, and it's not even making it to their primary inbox. There's a lot of other ways. How can I just make sure they see that? We don't even necessarily optimize these to a purchase, because Meta might be in the same boat. They're thinking they're not likely to purchase, but it's what if I just optimize for a reach? I just want to make sure that they see this ad. And to your point, it's such a small audience. The cost, the CPM for a reach versus an optimized for purchase is negligible. You're talking about spending $100 a month or something to just make sure all of your
keep it warm, right?
Just so they see you've got something new or something exciting or something, right? That you're just like, okay, great. So when they are in market, they're going to see it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's it. It just keeping your brand in their mind. And this is, I think, crucially important for brands that have products that are, have long longevities or really high ticket items. If you're a furniture company, if you are, like a homewares company, if you sell like bikes, cycling things, things like that you buy once, even if you're a mad cyclist, you maybe only buy a bike every 12 months at best, right?
Sure.
I mean, sometimes these people are spending car money on bikes.
Right.
So you want to be keeping them kind of warm, because there is a very good chance that they're going to come back in 18 months. And if in 18 months time, if you've done nothing to re-engage them and, they're out on the road and someone tells them that a brand that they shopped from was great, there's a really good chance that the loyalty just isn't going to be there and they're going to shop elsewhere.
This is a tangent. It's just because I'm ADHD. Are you like in the jungle? I hear like birds and beautiful sounds.
I mean, it is 7 a.m. Here in Queensland in Australia. So it's definitely birds, waking up as well and getting at it.
I love it. You don't need to change it. It's actually really relaxing. I'm like, I feel at peace right now. Okay. So let's go to like a concrete example or something. You were giving me an example of almost like this cardigan. So selling a cardigan to a customer versus selling one to a mother, a father, a gift buyer. It's like, how does that change messaging, cadence, what to send, what not to send, etc.?
Yeah. So ultimately, what we're trying to do is, understand who the shopper is, who they're shopping for. And we're looking at, it comes down to the type of brand you are and the type of products that you sell. So, let's say that you're a fashion retailer and you stock everything from, adults wear to kids wear to babies wear. Just because someone comes through and buys a cardigan out of your women's line, she may be a mother, she may be married and, want to buy something nice for her husband. We really want to get into the mindset of this customer because it helps us understand all the different types of content that could appeal to them, but also the type of messaging, the time of year that's important. For parents, going, back to school time is incredibly stressful and there's a lot to be thinking about. But similarly with school holidays, whereas, single people, Valentine's Day is coming up. So there's all different types of messaging that comes into the mentality of who these people are and what they're shopping for. But again, that can influence our segmentation. I think a lot of segmentation has been talked about in the past few years around, well, you should know if they're male and female so that you can send them the right things, or you should know if they like patterns or block colors so that you can send them the right, things there. Sure, but like, what is the greater context of this actual person? Their frequency that they shop, the average order value that they shop with, do they usually shop with a coupon or not? All of these things are probably going to play a bigger role in you timing your message right and having the content right in that message. Because at the end of the day, like, you could send someone something, but if it's 3 days after they got paid, before they get paid, and they're not in a position to shop right now, and you send them something, it just becomes aspirational for them. And yes, of course, there's strategies. We get them put on a wish list, and then we can come back around and get their attention later. But in terms of the right now, if you're looking at a segment, or you've got your calendar for the next week of campaigns that you're going to send out, and you're thinking about, well, how am I going to build these segments out to maybe widen it a little bit, get a few more people receiving this message, or I want to send a lot of emails, so I want to cut these segments down so that I could send 5 emails this week but not overload people. You need to start getting into the weeds there of looking at, like, okay, well, what's the frequency at which people have been on the site recently? So, I want high frequency. I want people that have a historically high average order value, or maybe they've only placed one order over all time, but they've been on the site recently. What percentage, if the last 10 emails that they've opened, have they received, have they opened at least 7 of them? All of that, like, extra bit of nuance to kind of tighten those groups down a bit. And maybe you've got an entire database of about 30,000, but you've got 5 or 6 things that you want to send out that week. Well, now all 30,000 can receive at least one of those pieces of content, if not maybe 2 or 3, if they're highly engaged. But you're not going to send your spam complaint rate through the roof, or your unsubscribe rate through the roof, by hitting 40 or 50% of that 30,000 that are just not interested in receiving an email every day from you.
Is there a limit to some of the segmentation? Meaning, let's say that you said you've got 100,000 emails. You could segment this in so many different ways. Could you get to a point where it now just becomes unmanageable, and you're like, I got to come up with 100 campaigns this week to do that? In let's say if it is unmanageable today, would it be still best if it was manageable? Would that still be better if you use AI to help you, et cetera?
This is where we say, like, it comes down to your marketing calendar as well, right? If you've got things that are worth saying, then it's usually worth, particularly if you've got a really large database, then it's usually worth finding people to say that too. And the juggling act that a lot of CRM managers and even founders will say, like, I speak to founders all the time who are saying, we need to increase revenue. But then, they get a couple of extra browse abandonment emails, and they're on the phone being like, you're sending me too many emails. It's annoying. I know my customers won't like this. And I'm sure any founder is used to that juxtaposition of being their own ideal customer and knowing what's going to annoy people. But at the same time, going out to the market and saying, like, can you help me understand these people better in terms of how I can get them to shop more often? So it comes down to that. We're trying to figure out who are these people that are engaged enough and keen enough that they want to receive those emails, and what is it in your marketing calendar that you've got to say. There's always additional ideas, right? If you've got a low period of campaigns, you don't know what to be talking about, well, of course, like, yeah, let's look at some segments around sizes that people have purchased and do a size specific highlight campaign of your clearance section that feels really personalized and intentional. Let's do a plain text email from a customer support person to everyone who's purchased once over all time, but not again. And, have it come from customer support to say, hey, we've done something new, or we've put together something just for you. There's always additional ideas and strategies there for broad segments like that are, key customer demographics that you want to convert. But there's also opportunity there to be, one big thing that we find is really important is integrating your tech stack so that you've got as much data as possible to be making decisions with. So, are we actually factoring in who are people that left a review in the last 30 days that have an available coupon code from reviews, and the review was at least 3 stars or at least 4 stars? Well, like, these are people who are happy with their last order and they have an active coupon code. Let's make sure that they're in whatever campaign we're going to send today. Or is that group big enough that we should be sending them something specific about their coupon code? Taking the time to build those out can be really valuable.
For sure. The size one is an interesting one to me. I got stuck there. My brain was like, swirling around. So I mean, imagine there's some very good ones, and I'm going to ask you for one. But the thing that popped in my head that I had to not chuckle at the moment was, it's like, we just got through the holidays, and I couldn't help but thinking that somebody's going to send out an email that's like, hey, you normally wear a 32 waist, but you just had Thanksgiving and cookies. Here's some stuff we've got for 34 waists for you, just in case. You never know. I know that that's not the email you're sending, but like, what are emails that you would be sending from like size? You're like, here, this is a beneficial way to send out to an email about sizing.
Yeah, I mean, look, it probably comes down to demographics, but sizing comes in a lot of different formats, right? Like, it doesn't just have to be fashion. Like, if you're a furniture retailer and you have really oversized, types of furniture or categories of furniture that work together, and someone has purchased from within a certain category type. When is a perfect time of year? I mean, in the lead up to Christmas, a lot of people are hosting, having people over. What a perfect time to be like, hey, here are the side tables that go with that couch you ordered. Here are the chairs that go with that dining table that you ordered, or whatever it might be. And particularly, when you've got motivators, like, I mean, fashion is always a great example, but often we see some of the best performing emails are like that email that's just, our clearance section has been updated in a banner, and then the block underneath it is shop size 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever it might be. Those campaigns do really well because it's such a facilitated shopping experience. Who doesn't want to see, I could just get a quick little filter of everything that's my size that you've just dramatically discounted, and all I have to do is click one button. Easy, That's helpful. Really easy messaging to get people on site. That level of personalization. And you can take it a step further if you've got the right demographic. Things for brands like activewear, right? Sizing there is quite personal, and people will appreciate if you were to say, here is a product feed directly in the email of products that are your size, based on your previous shopping, that we've got in stock that are your size, or that have just gone on clearance that are your size. You might have to be careful, if you've got a size conscious customer group, to not call that out, but ultimately it's a brand decision. You can find appropriate way to articulate that when you send the email, just to say, personalized picks based on your shopping, that isn't going to feel as maybe Big Brother is like, we know what size you wear. But at the same time, I think these days, and it's borne out in a lot of the data, but also a lot of the surveys and polls that you hear of customers, they want to feel understood by the brands that they shop from. And so that concept of, it's too creepy that they know this much about me, is very quickly becoming more of like a boomer mentality. The younger generations, millennials, Gen Z, Um, very, very comfortable with a brand just saying like, hey, we know that you're going to like this. And it doesn't need to be much more than that.
Yeah. I share all my data. Like I just give it all up. I want everything to be customized to me. So let's talk actually listening points. What data are you intentionally collecting and what data is just noise?
So for us, it's engagement is probably the most intentional thing that we want to track. And that's where those integration pieces come into it. The number of brands that I speak to who are using a loyalty tool that's not integrated with their CRM, or they've got an on-site personalization tool, like some of these things like Rebuy and Nosto. These are really expensive personalization tools on site that people are using for conversion rate optimization. They all have integrations with Klaviyo. Everything that their engines are understanding about a customer can be, all of that detail can be sent back to Klaviyo so that you can use those persona profiles in your CRM. So it's a really, really important thing for us to look deeply at your entire tech stack and what you're using and make sure that all of that is integrated.
Is that the lowest hanging fruit? Like, is it just like almost when you're just like, you have all this stuff and you're just not bringing it in here. Let's bring it in here and this is going to make a difference right now.
Yeah, I still talk to merchants most weeks who collect product reviews but haven't integrated their review software and they don't display those reviews in their abandoned cart emails. That's about 15 minutes of work to fix so that when someone abandons a cart, they can see the number of stars a product has, the number of reviews. And a lot of those review tools now, you can actually dynamically pull in the most recent, like the text of the most recent 5-star review. So you can create these hyper personalized abandonment emails, whether they've just browsed the product or they've put it in their cart, that shows 2 or 3 of the most recent people saying, this was the best purchase that I ever made, or I'm loving this thing so much since I got it. And we know, statistically, that user-generated content is the highest converting thing to put in front of someone at that point. And there's still lots of merchants that aren't doing it. Loyalty programs is another big one. People that've got a loyalty program and it's on a page, there's a link in the footer that takes people to their loyalty program. And people get automatically opted in when they place an order, but they haven't got anything in their email, no dynamic banner at the top that shows you how many points you have, which is a really crucial one, to just have a little banner that says you've got enough points for a discount or not, right, when someone receives a campaign. They don't have anything, say, in their footer that highlights that most of these loyalty tools have a referral program built in, and almost everyone configures their, give 10, get 10 kind of offer, but they don't promote it at all. And we know that, again, word of mouth is one of the best ways for these brands to grow. So there's a lot of opportunity like that, both from a conversion standpoint, but also that data can be so valuable that's coming in. I tell people one of the biggest values of a loyalty program is the way that it incentivizes customers to log in when they land on the site. And a login is so valuable because suddenly all of your cookies drop. You've identified that session. Now, whether it's Meta or Klaviyo or whoever, if they view a product, if they add a product to cart, all of that data is going to be able to sync with your entire marketing apparatus now and give you more information on this customer. And it's a massively overlooked aspect of loyalty programs that they have this great ability for every person that comes on the website to want to log in and basically allow us to track them. So if you're not using that effectively, both to encourage people to de-anonymize, but also integrating all that data with all of your marketing tools, you're missing a huge opportunity to send more targeted, more personalized comms.
Yeah, that de-anonymization is huge. So that helps even on a lot of the ad stuff that we're doing and everything too. Yeah, I mean, brands are spending thousands on tools to identify anonymous traffic, right? And a lot of them have something. Klaviyo's the new customer hub feature that they've released. A great little feature for you to be able to prompt people to log in, and only made more powerful if you have a loyalty program that gives them a reason to see their points and all of that. That's great. You broke it down for me as having like two different types of, let's just say, like listening points. You called it direct and passive. Direct being like forms, surveys, quizzes. Passive, browse behavior, product affinity, time decay. How screwed up do you think that this data is for people like me who run an agency and now browse all kinds of products across all kinds of different things? Is it even worth it? Like, what's going on here with for somebody like me?
Yeah, look, I mean, there's definitely going to be those outliers, right, that you see in the data. But at the end of the day, like these things, you're talking about the majority of your customers wanting to put them on a brand discovery pathway, right? Most of the time you want, whether they're a new shopper or a new customer, you want to educate them about your catalog, about the brand's principles, or all the reasons why they should be loyal. And some of those direct strategies, like quizzes, we're massive advocates of the idea of quizzes for brands. A lot of brands think like, oh, it's just overkill to need that sort of thing. But if you've got a large product catalog, the assistance in terms of product discovery that a quiz can give to a customer is massive. The convenience of that customer to land on a website, if you're a craft store, you've got tens of thousands of SKUs probably, and that customer might have very specific preferences around, whatever the part of the hobby that they're interested in, whether that's fabric type, whether that's, brand affinities, all sorts of things. And for them, it could massively simplify the shopping experience for them to be able to just say to you, hey, here are the 4 things that I'm actually looking for in terms of types of products. And then you can just go, okay, well, here are all the products that meet those 4 parameters. That works just as well if you're selling bedding, right? Someone comes on, I sleep hot. I've got this size bed. I've got, whatever these preferences might be in terms of, I like a fully assembled kit. Actually, no, I like individual pieces that I can style and color. I'm sure if you spoke to a linen company, they'd be saying, a quiz, that's just putting a barrier up in front of people, an extra step that they have to do to find their product. Not really, that might massively increase the convenience for them to find very, very specifically the types of products that they want. So I think, that's a good example of a really an active kind of data capture process where for the customer, it doesn't feel like they're handing over data. For them, it's about product discovery. It's about personalizing their experience on the website and more easily building a for you kind of collection page rather than just going to like bedding queen size and having to scroll through a massive collection of, bundles and individual colors.
I got to be honest, I'm getting lazy and I don't want to do that anymore. You know what I want to see? I've got the Apple Vision Pro, and this is what I would like to see now for shopping. And like nobody has launched an app that I actually like from an e-commerce standpoint there yet. Alo Yoga did an okay job. Like there's some, but they're not great. What I want to see is, to your point, I want to walk into your store kind of thing. I don't want like an avatar, like a really genuine looking human being just being like, hey, so glad you're here at the store. What can I help you find today? It's like, I'm looking for some new pants. It's like, great. Tell me more about what you need these pants for. You going hiking? What's going on? Right. And it's like, it's a quiz, but it's a choose my own adventure quiz. And I actually feel like I'm talking to somebody that's intelligent and cares and can help me. And they're like, great. I've just pulled up these things. Now you don't have to browse and filter and do all these things. Here's the 3 things that are most likely going to fit exactly what you want. You're like, great. Sounds good. Let me just go and buy. That's what I want. Yeah. And I don't think we're far from it.
No. And that's that personalization element that's practical, right? That people want. Yep. The passive piece that we're collecting is,
but I don't want to type it. I don't want to type it. I just want to talk to the avatar.
Yeah. But the passive piece is all the information that we're collecting based on your behavior. So, I mean, the simple ones are things like, they viewed this product or they were on this page. But we also do things, so like, let's say in the welcome email that someone gets when they on board, we often encourage brands to use collection tile links rather than a direct product feed in that first email. And the reason for that is, if you think about the behavior of someone who's just filled out a pop-up and then opened a welcome email, 99% of the time they're just there for their coupon code, right?
Sure.
But they're off the website, they've copied their coupon code, they're ready to go shopping, they want the quickest experience to go back to where they want to go. If you have all those collection tiles directly under the coupon code rather than just like hoping and praying that the product they're seeing is the right one, They can click on the collection that they think is most appropriate. They might even click on 2 or 3. And you can tag them as interested in each of those collections. In the back end, Klaviyo has the ability to do that based on what they've clicked. If you did that in welcome email 1, they browse on the website, they don't check out. Well, day 2's welcome email now, if we know what collections they clicked on and what they're interested in, now we can display product feeds of the top 1 or 2 or 3 collections that we know that they're interested in, and put the top 6 or 8 products in front of them in that email, but know that we're on the right path effectively. So those are a bit more of those passive, like, where are people clicking? What are they showing some level of interest in? And then making sure that's what we're putting in front of them.
You talked to me before about, like, let's just say some myths and nuance to different pieces. One that I was calling like this loyalty program trap. We've seen these waves, loyalty programs, the mobile apps, now both again. What tells you instantly when a brand isn't being intentional, that this is more like a trap than like a real helpful thing?
I mean, there's no greater giveaway that a loyalty program hasn't really been managed or hasn't really been maintained than the program just having bronze, silver, gold as the tiers. That is, I mean, the number one obvious thing that, like, we've just bolted this on in the hope of that it's going to help retention. And then in terms of the mobile apps are a really interesting one. They really are not in our, kind of wheelhouse in terms of something that we recommend. We're a customer journey agency. We're very specifically specialized in those like one-to-one interactions. But we end up supporting clients with mobile apps a lot. First of all, there's a lot of really great tools out there. Reactive, TapCart, really, really good tools for building and integrating a Shopify mobile app that make it really, really easy to launch a mobile app. But the two things that are really interesting is, like, push notifications is a massively slept on marketing channel in e-com, right? Particularly for pure play online brands, where it's entirely digital experience on your phone. But also the ability to create loyalty with things like app exclusives, having your loyalty program really tied into the app so that you have this really controlled space where people can have a really personalized experience based on who they are. And just not doing those things, not promoting them, is a real, obvious indicator that they're not being used. And it's a problem because these platforms are expensive. Some of these loyalty tools cost a lot of money. And those credits as well, if you have a loyalty program and you have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of points accruing in customer accounts, that is a liability on your balance sheet. This stuff goes beyond marketing and into the actual health and finance of your business. And so if we're not effectively using these tools, they're actually kind of become slightly hidden bear traps that you could step on at any point. Loyalty programs is absolutely one of the ones that are the easiest to solve, that can have the most impact, because just branding your loyalty program goes such a long way to making it something that customers want to use and want to engage in. Creating a name, naming the currency, and just making sure that some of the rewards are really relevant for the type of product that you have. Really good example, we work with a brand called Sabo. So global fashion brand, and they do regular kind of releases of product, but their products sell out really, really quickly. And so that it is actually genuinely very important to people to make sure that they're online when new collections drop. But another thing is that these dresses, yes, there's only a certain number of them, but they're a statement piece, or a nice piece that people want to wear out. And as a part of their loyalty program, we basically did a little integration with their 3PL or their warehouse, so that if you're in a higher tier of the loyalty program, and you place your order is bumped to the top of the label printing process, right? So if there's a sale or if there's a launch day and you buy a dress and you're in the top tier of loyalty program, you can basically be guaranteed that your order is going to be one of the first couple of hundred to be packed, because you're in that tier of, top couple of hundred levels of customers. Now, when you think about a perk of loyalty, right, that costs the Sabo absolutely nothing. to implement, but the value to the customer of feeling a part of a program and feeling important is immeasurable. The amount of loyalty that
yeah, but what's the actual value of that though? So you get yours first,
yeah. But I mean, think about during Black Friday, right? When
sure.
A brand's processing thousands of orders, it might be 3 days until that order is fulfilled if you didn't place your order until the evening and the sale launched in the morning. The difference could genuinely be 3 or 4 days getting your package early compared to someone else, right? Mm-hmm. There's huge value in that. And it's just perceived value, right? You're not going to make any money by getting it first. But the idea that if I'm about to spend $300 on a dress, that I'm going to get it before other people, that's important, right? You want that. You want more than anything that feeling of the brand saying we are acknowledging the value that you've brought to us, and we are intentionally prioritizing you. And that is about relationships, right? And that's the sort of thing that creates long-term loyalty, is valuing the relationship.
I like that. I want to get to know the human being who is Jason Anderson as well a little bit, because I think it's fun to know the backstory and what makes you you. You grew up first-gen Australian, working from 13, parents in the military. How much of your leadership style, the way that you go about business, comes from that environment?
I don't know how much of my leadership style, I would say, comes from my parents. Although, I don't know, maybe the more that I think about it, they were pretty laissez-faire with me, and I'm a bit the same. If we want to use technical management terms. But yeah, I mean, my family migrated to Australia from Spain, and then, back in I think at the time it was maybe the 60s or 70s, you could enlist in the Australian military, and if you did a term of service, you could get citizenship. So that was kind of the pathway. My mom is only about 5 foot. I think she was a really great marksman. She ended up, she has photos carrying guns that are pretty much as big as she is.
Sure.
Was her kind of role. But yeah, I mean, that was a pathway in. And I think, I'm sure, a lot of people will have that experience. They came here, they didn't really speak English. They learned while they're in the military, and went out into the world after their term and started working the kind of jobs that you can get, right? Like fairly low income roles, but they, just worked hard. You wanted to work hard because you're excited to be in a country like Australia. And so for me, by the time I was, 12 or 13, I knew, if I wanted to buy a PlayStation game, or if I wanted to do something like that, unless my birthday was coming up, it was kind of up to me to figure out how I was going to make that happen. And all my experience growing up was seeing the people around me, whether my sister or my parents, if you had to work days and nights to afford what you wanted, then you worked days and nights. If you did what you had to do to earn the things that you wanted. And I think that was the mentality that I took moving forward. And yeah, I mean, as soon as I could get a job, I wanted a job because I wanted that independence for myself. And that was just something that grew. And I think, probably a classic story. I didn't do so well in school. It wasn't really the kind of environment that I thrived in. The social environment, obviously, I loved, but I was not the sort of person that did well, sat in front of a chalkboard trying to memorize lines and remember things for a test. I knew that I wasn't stupid, but I was definitely not doing well, and I had this more practical sense of all the things that I wanted to do. And yeah, I think that bore out. I started working, and I worked in kitchens for a long time, which I really loved, and I almost pursued cooking, but then it's a very difficult lifestyle being a chef. You're generally working nights. It's a hugely stressful role.
Because entrepreneurship is so easy of a path.
Yeah. But I mean, again, in a way, I think I did a lot of these jobs. I mean, one of the first jobs that I had was cleaning showrooms. I would get up at 4 a.m., as a 14-year-old.
That's early.
My downstairs neighbor that was his business. He cleaned showrooms. I'd get up at 4 a.m. I'd hop in the van with him, and we'd drive around for 2 to 3 hours before like bathroom retailers would open on a Saturday morning, and we'd be going through shining up all the bathtubs and toilets and, things. And we'd go to 4 or 5 places. And that was actually the best money that I made until I was probably 18. The hourly rate was fantastic. But, that was just kind of, you did what you did. And I was also in that environment. Like, I lived in an apartment block with a lot of immigrants, and they all did the same thing, but they had businesses, and stress and hard work was just kind of part of it. So, it wasn't until I was probably 21 that I really got an idea that, like, I really enjoy, talking with people and the social aspects. And I am kind of interested in the psychology behind, why people do what they do. And I hadn't quite figured out then, but I started getting into, I love to write. And so that's when I went into journalism, and I actually thought PR was going to be the way that I would go, that, that idea of creating news and communicating, and, maybe I could write speeches. I don't know, like, I'm just going to jump in and see. It was until after that really that I kind of found what I wanted in ultimately now what I do, and that it is marketing, and marketing is seen as, like, a very broad channel, but the specialization that I have in email, SMS, push, like, this is all one-to-one. I've really found a role that is all about having individual conversations with people and convincing them to buy products.
I love it. I love even just that idea of that hustle that you had early on. I can relate to that. And I love that idea of neighbors. One of my earliest jobs, probably around when I was 14 too, I think is when I started doing it, was roofing. One of my neighbors was a roofer. And similar story where it's like we got up, at crack of dawn, and we were up on top of a roof. It was hard work. We got done at like 10 o'clock at night. I forgot to wear sunscreen, so you're torched, and but it was just like the best money I'd ever made, like at a 14-year-old, right? Like $50 cash a day or something like that, right? You're like, was rolling in it.
I think I was the same thing. I think one day I had like $60 in my pocket after finishing a morning, and I'd never seen that kind of money in my own pocket.
Right. So that's good. I appreciate that. I understand that you have also spent some time not just in Spain, but Germany, where you were carrying some money, got into maybe a fight or almost a fight, or something happened there. What happened in Germany?
Yeah, that's one of the crazier experiences of my life. So I was backpacking, this was a little bit after finishing school. I'd been working for about a year, and I decided to, go and do the backpacking thing for 6 months. And so I hadn't been in Europe too long at this point, and I'd been really set on doing everything as cheaply as possible, just getting buses everywhere. And I think after my 3rd or 4th overnight awful bus ride, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm buying a Eurail pass, which for people that, if you don't know, in Europe's train network, you can basically buy a pass that's like an international train pass, and you can buy a certain number of trips. So let's say 10 or 15 trips. And it just allows you to basically get on any train in Europe that you want. So you could just do all your overnight travel via train. And so, the person I was traveling with and I, we were like, we're not going to do this anymore. We're just going to get buy a Euro pass. Pretty expensive, but we kind of knew that we might end up doing it. We had the cash, and we quite literally had the cash. So I had gone back to our hostel. We were actually meeting someone, an exchange student that had been at our high school. We were in Frankfurt. We were meeting them for a beer. And so the person I was with was in the train station waiting for them to arrive. I'd gone back to the hostel to get our cash and was going back to the train station. Frankfurt is like one of the busiest international cities in Europe. It's a finance hub, busiest airport in Europe. And the main central station is massive. And there's a big tram station out the front as well for connections. And I was standing at the lights waiting to cross this tram stations to get to the train station, and there was an underground way that you could go, so I couldn't be bothered waiting. I went down the underground, which probably should have been that was the first mistake that I made, knowing that I had, €1,000 in my pocket. As I was going down the stairs, someone said something to me in German as they were walking up the stairs, and I just said that I don't speak German. And the guy started following me and saying, "Oh, it's okay. Do you have a couple of euros for me?" And probably followed me for maybe 50 meters. And I just got really frustrated after he'd asked probably for the 15th time. And I said, look, man, I don't have any money for you. Leave me alone. And I turned around and started to walk away, and he spat on me.
Oh, no.
And yeah, I mean, I'd never had something like that happen to me before. Yeah. And, you know, as you do, I just kind of saw red in that moment. Yeah. I turned around, and the guy had probably, you know, maybe gotten 10 meters away. We started walking towards each other. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw someone coming. And that was kind of the light bulb moment in my head of like, I've just been absolutely set up here and I'm about to get robbed of everything that I've got. And at the very last minute, I kind of looked to the left at this guy that was coming towards us, and he flicked a switchblade knife out of his hand, and then he lunged at the guy that spat on me. And I'd stopped walking as soon as I saw the knife, and the guy had obviously seen that I was kind of shocked. He turned to his right, and he just avoided getting stabbed by this guy. And the guy chased him out of the underground with the knife.
So some good Samaritan just came and just
some
helped
guy,
out.
Just some absolute random guy saw me get spit on and just wasn't going to stand for it. And so he basically chased after him, and then he started walking towards me, and he still had this knife in his hand. And he just really calmly folded the knife up, put it away, extended his hand, shook my hand, and said, "I'm sorry about that. Let me walk you out." And we walked out. In
perfect English.
We walked out of the underground. And I said, thanks. And he walked off and got on his train. And I went and bought my rail ticket. Yeah. Really bizarre.
I mean, that's one of those things where if you've ever heard of people talk about like entertaining angels, right? It's like sometimes there's like there's no reason for like this guy to randomly just like, hey, I'm going to come just lunge with this knife, and that's wild.
Yeah. I mean, I still try to convince myself to this day, like, I'm sure it was maybe a bit of bravado, but at the time if the guy who spat at me had not seen me stop and look to my left, the way the guy lunged at him, that could have been a horrifying story instead of a really funny one.
Wow.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you almost went into becoming a chef. You love food, you told me. Yeah. If I was coming to Australia, what's the place I've got to go to and the meal I got to try there?
Oh, man, there are a lot of choices. I mean, Melbourne is kind of widely considered our food capital. A lot of Americans will call it Melbourne. But yeah, on the South Coast, definitely known for our kind of food and art scene. Personally, it's probably third on the list of places that I would be wanting to go. Tasmania, the little island off the south of Australia, is beautiful. It's like incredible place. All the kind of nature and everything that's there, but also the produce that comes out of Tasmania is unbeatable. Lamb is one of the most famous things that they farm down there, but you know, basically any food that you get down there. Also a really, really good cold climate wine region and whiskey region. So if you like whiskey, if you like cold climate wines like your Pinot Noirs, your whites, incredible kind of place to go. There is a place in Hobart, which is the capital city of Tasmania, called Sunny's. You can't book a table. It's basically one long bar and a couple of extra tables. You just have to queue up when they open. Every day the menu is different. They just get whatever's kind of fresh, farm fresh, and make up a menu. There's only 5 things on the menu. They basically have a piece of butcher's paper on the wall of what the 5 things are. The chef works behind the bar, just cooking the food as they go. They'll have 5 wine pairings with all of the food that you can buy by the glass, or you can kind of buy by the bottle. They've got vinyl records in there. So the bartender is basically manning the record player and making drinks. The chef is cooking the food. The food is unbelievable. If you sit at the bar and you're watching the food come out, you'll end up buying all 5 things on the menu, basically, over the course of the night, because everything looks so good. Yeah, it's a very difficult to beat experience. But probably the number one place that I like to go is Adelaide in South Australia, Australia's most famous wine region by far. If you like big, bold reds, really, I mean, any type of wine, to be honest, is kind of grown in some part of Adelaide. There's 4 or 5 different wine regions. The McLaren Vale in particular, though, is my kind of place. It's in the southern part. You can literally be on the beach, on the sand, get in a car, drive for 20 minutes straight up into the mountains, and be at a beautiful winery drinking incredible red wine and an amazing lunch, and then be back at the beach 2 or 3 hours later, within another 20-minute drive. It's unbeatable place to be.
What's the Australian wine that I got to try?
Rusden is probably my favorite winemaker. They make a Shiraz called Black Guts, which is really, really good. Make sure it's got a few years on it if you can.
Okay.
That's kind of my place of choice. But I mean, our probably most famous brand, Penfolds, their Max's series, which is a bit of like a series kind of in honor of a winemaker that was there. Really affordable bottles of really, really good red wine.
Nice. And what should I eat with my red wine? What is your go-to dish? You said you almost went into cooking. You were going to cook this. I'm coming over to your house. What's the dish that we got to have with this red wine?
So I make a kind of like an 8-hour bolognese. Is kind of the thing that I do. Like, if I've had a really terrible week and I need to unwind, I'll get up in the morning, I'll go to the butcher and buy a nice proper pieces of pancetta. I'll get a mix of veal and pork mince to make the ragu. I'll do everything. I'll make my own sofretti, like the whole piece, make everything from scratch. It takes about 10 hours to do. I usually buy 2 bottles of red wine. I'll put about half a bottle into the bolognese and the other bottle and a half into myself as I cook the bolognese. As I said, if I've had a really bad week and I just need to completely zone out, I have a record player that sits right next to my kitchen. I'll just basically put on records and cook all day.
What are we listening to?
It depends. It depends on my mood. More often than not, some kind of maybe light pop or maybe some jazz. I've been really enjoying at the moment Anderson .Paak. He's got a collab with another artist. I'm just trying to think of the name. Yes Lord is the first album and Oh Lord is the second album. But yeah, something like that, Malibu, one of Anderson .Paak's albums, something like that, and then, a really nice red with a really slow cooked, ragu bolognese. Make the pasta from scratch as well, obviously.
Really? Nice.
Yeah, it's
what kind of noodles you make?
Very therapeutic.
You talking like pappardelle or what?
Yeah, pappardelle. That's the way.
It's the best with a good ragu like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I love to cook as well. Music, I'm with you there, but the music that I end up doing, so I cook like all kinds of different things from all kinds of different countries, and my kids will tease me because they come home from school, and usually what I have playing is whatever the music is that I am cooking. So if I'm cooking Moroccan, I got Moroccan music going. Yeah. They come in, they're just like, oh, we know what we're having for dinner. They don't even need to smell it. They can already hear what we're eating.
That's great. Yeah.
Okay. If you were going to give one more piece of advice to somebody that's in e-commerce who is trying to grow, this could be about customer journey. It could be about something completely different, but you're like, this is the thing that likely is keeping you stuck and why you can't break that 10, 20, $30 million mark to get up over that $100 million mark. What's the other thing that you would say, like, you got to look at this?
Yeah, look, we talked a lot about the segmentation, but I think really, really looking at your audience, particularly from a CRM standpoint, like trying to break that audience down so that you can increase lifetime value. Like a lot of the time, the quickest way to boost those revenue numbers is to take your average number of orders from 1.2 to 1.5 or 1.7. If you can do that, you have exponential multipliers on customer value. And then again, we know statistically speaking, once someone gets to 3 purchases with a brand is more or less a tipping point where they become more likely to shop than less likely to shop again. So we normally say you need to be really intentional about what is your journey from first to second purchase and second to third purchase. How are you treating those customers differently? How are you putting, goalposts in front of them to to kind of feel rewarded. And then, again, this is where loyalty programs can come into play. Sometimes we really want to gamify not just like your average order value. This is something that people do a lot with loyalty programs. They'll say, okay, my average order value is $180. So I'm going to make the threshold from tier 1 to tier 2 $190 worth of spend or $200 worth of spend. And that's going to encourage people to go from 180 to 200 for that initial average order value. Sound logic, but if you look at your average first order value versus your average order value, it is not uncommon for there to be a $10 or $20 disparity between the average first order and your total average. And so you could have just set the goalpost actually twice as far away as you intentionally meant to make that second, hitting that tier. And then the perception that you feel like, I've put together a program that's actually pretty achievable. Actually, people start looking at it and think, I don't even know if I'm going to spend that much. I'm not even going to bother looking at the rewards in that next tier because I might not even get there. So really being really intentional around like, well, if I want to help people get from first to second purchase, I'm not just going to look at my average figures. What's the most popular product on average? What's the spend on average? I'm going to intentionally analyze the data for first time customers and second time customers and build a framework for them to progress.
Jason, it has been so fun learning from you today, learning about you, meeting you. If people wanted to work with you or they wanted to follow you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so hop on the website, andzen.co. For anyone who reaches out from the podcast, we do an audit, a CRM audit. It's 30 to 40 pages, a really in-depth look at everything from list growth and deliverability to flows and campaign performance, all tied to benchmarks. Normally $2,000 would do it for free for anyone who's listening. So please feel free to jump on the website. Inquire there. You can book a call with APAC or North America or EMEA. We've got people in all regions that can help. Otherwise, we've also got a podcast, the Andzen Approach. So if you're not sick of this voice already, feel free to also have a look up the Andzen Approach. We specifically interview tech partners specifically on how can people leverage Klaviyo and whatever their platform is to do more or make the most out of their platform. So we've had some really great conversations on there with, loyalty tools, data capture tools, CRMs, everything that you can think of is on there, even conversion rate optimization tools. So there's something on there for everybody.
Well, Jason, again, I can't thank you enough for spending your time with us and sharing your wisdom today.
Of course. Happy to do it. Thanks for having me on, Will.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Up Arrow podcast with William Harris. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.